interested in workers' co-ops from many different angles, but I think that they could really provide a meaningful tool for neighborhood redevelopment and for new jobs in cities like this.
Everyone here went?
No, not
over there.
I'm Allison and I'm a volunteer at Technocopia.
I was waiting for him to finish his Google Hangout and stuff. My name is Nick Gold. I'm founder and director of Technocopia, and I got involved in, well, Technocopia is a nonprofit, but I'm also involved with the Neuron Robotics Co-op that we're trying to put together, which is a reformation of his company, which I'll let him talk about. But I'm interested in co-ops because I don't want to have a boss, and I figure for all the reasons I don't like having a boss, I shouldn't aspire to be a boss. So it seems pretty straightforward at that point.
I've already gone, so you want to go again?
Well, did anyone who... Joe, did you get to introduce yourself last round?
Not particularly. Hey, I'm Joe Reinhardt. I'm a staff member at Democracy Foundation, which is the affiliate nonprofit of the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives.
And also listening in and maybe calling in to participate is Maggie Cohn from the Co-op Fund of New England. She's on staff there. Also a great resource in the area. So, all right. So we're going to get started with a quick...
More people.
Oh, there are a couple more people there?
In the left.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
It's okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm Kevin Harrington, founder of Neuron Robotics LLC, which we are interested in transferring over to a worker cooperative. Currently, we order all of that stuff, and we want to turn it over to have a worker cooperative operating out of Technocopia as our overhead facility to provide industrial automation and robotic manufacturing for as many people as possible, trying to lower the barrier of entry and lower the cost of producing actual useful in real.
Great to be hearing more in a minute. Other people who joined and haven't introduced themselves, name, you're part of a group or a company, and why you're interested in co-ops or this workshop.
Okay, I'm Luz Gonzalez. I'm with Pure Juice, and I'm interested in learning more about the co-op and seeing how that works, and possibly seeing if Pure Juice could become co-op and how that works. So I have two interns that are here with me.
Melissa. I'm Dana.
They recently started working with Pure Juice.
Great. And thank you, Pure Juice, for bringing some juice to sample. Do you want? Well, we'll be hearing a little bit more from Pure Juice too. Anyone else not introduced themselves yet? Anyone from Future Focus want to say introduce themselves? And know that they have a panel. Okay. So we're going to start with a quick brainstorm about the main reasons people would be interested in turning their company into a co-op. So this is an open brainstorm, and financial, values-based, logistical, or other stuff is all welcome. What are some reasons people would want to consider a co-op?
Well, there's a team. You would have a team of people, which would be great.
That's maybe values and logistical. You have more people to work with too. Other ideas?
From perspective, it comes down to political economics. What is who's producing and who's making then the decisions on what to produce, how to produce it, and what to do with the profits. Sort of a core question in politics and economics that we don't talk about.
for folks on that are participating via video conference for people to speak up so everyone can hear.
Maybe there'd be more fairness in who's gonna get compensated for what they've done.
Fairness, that's a values term. Fairness and compensation. Or maybe that's financial too.
Distribution of profits.
And I would add to that wealth building, right? So it's not just the profits as it goes, but that everyone in the co-op is building wealth, not just a few people. Any others?
Systemic sustainability.
Is that a value?
I'd probably put it under. Well, it could be, but I'd say
Which-
probably logistics in terms of like
Makes sense.
a supportable economy. You know, the people are more, the co-ops are more active in terms of being participants in their local economy and are less likely to, you know, less likely to destroy the environment or take too much from the economy so that it collapses on one side or the other. Those sorts of imbalances we're dealing with now.
Sustainability, both in logistical and values, maybe. Other ideas? What, George?
In what was just said, how to become part of the community support system.
Community, what seems support system?
Probably from a practical side of things, given current technology, most of the duties of a boss can be automated and are functionally unnecessary for a person to be doing them.
No boss. Bobby.
Yeah.
And maybe just
Yeah.
Financially not paying an extra person.
creating safe and dignified jobs. Safe and dignified jobs.
Resources of income.
Aggregate economic demand support. How do you have a business if you don't have customers to sell to? Where are those customers getting their money from, if not cooperative? Where?
They're more rooted in community, so they're less likely to take the money outside of the city. So any money made kind of stays within the community.
So local economies. So local.
I don't know how you'd summarize it, but I feel like a lot of people in the political realm or in their jobs like to say like those people in charge are doing this wrong, like getting more of a sense of responsibility instead of just saying something's wrong and pointing the finger at somebody else. I just like to be that way.
Accountability.
Yeah.
I think also there'd be shared goals. Everybody would probably have the same goal in mind.
Great. Well, we will probably hear lots of other reasons as we go into more depth on the specific co-ops. So, if you notice one and want to jot one up later, or if someone jot one up, please share it. But we're going to dive in. Or anyone, Joe or anyone on the computer want to share anything? You might be muted, Joe.
I would just say, if folks could sort of speak towards the microphone, that's useful. It was really hard to hear what most folks said, so I don't want to say anything at risk of repeating folks.
Yeah. Please speak up. All right, so let's dive in. and hear about the experience of a yard and a half from Boston. Thanks, Carolyn, for coming all the way out and sharing.
So just to give a little bit of, are people okay if I sit? Yeah. A little history about a yard and a half. So we were actually started as a sole proprietorship 26 years ago, and the woman who started the company created something really special in terms of the culture and really creating development opportunities for people of color, particularly Latino immigrants and women in a very male-dominated field. And so when it came time for her to retire, she wanted to, give the company back to the people who helped her build it, and she didn't want to see that culture get lost by selling out to like a Valley Crest or a big national landscaping company. And so we started looking at options to form a worker co-op and buy the company from her. So we actually completed that. It was about an 18-month process, and we completed that this January. So we're now a co-op. We're about 20 employees, 11 of us right now are worker owners. Because a lot of us have been with the company for like 10, 15, 18 years, we set a pretty high bar in terms of like people need to be with the company for 3 years before they become eligible as owners. And it's unusual for co-ops, but for conversions and especially for a lot of building and architecture and like folks in our industry, that seems to be the way that they tend to have like a longer candidacy period. I've been really involved in doing the conversion and also in sort of developing the co-op in terms of like the human end of it, because there's a lot of skills that when we're used to working for somebody else and like people talk about accountability and stuff, there are a lot of skills that we have to learn to become comfortable making decisions for ourselves and living with the results of those and making decisions together and doing that in a good way. So that's a lot of my job. So I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the opportunities of co-op conversions and why that's a neat model, and then also some of the things are challenging as opposed to just like starting something from scratch. So opportunities, like I said, there's this idea of like leaving a legacy, being able to continue with a good company culture. There's also, I've seen co-op conversions where there's an owner who's going to stay involved in the business, but maybe like we start out doing something we love because we love having our hands in the dirt, and then you grow and you have people to manage, and maybe that's not what you're into or good at. And so conversions can be a neat opportunity for owners who want to stay in the business but get back to doing what they love and maybe pay somebody else to manage it or a group of people to manage it. Also, like a couple of people said, doing a co-op conversion keeps the business local rather than selling out to where it's a big national company and your profits are going to end up going to the Midwest or something. You're actually creating job opportunities with real growth and real income potential for people here, and you're keeping that money local to then spend it through co-op and keep it here. One thing I think that like the neatest thing for us about becoming a co-op has been that none of us would have seen ourselves becoming owners before this. None of us had the personal wealth or the social resources or the know-how individually, and by pulling together, like we can pull our resources both in terms of economics and also in terms of what we each know how to do and what we each bring to the table. And so it's particularly for communities of color, for women in more male professions, for young people, for farmers who need access to land. It can be a really interesting opportunity to get access when we wouldn't expect to happen. And the other thing in terms of being in conversion is that often whoever the former owner was, has learned a lot. And so assuming that things go well and that everybody wants this, you can benefit from all of the knowledge that they gain, so you're not reinventing the wheel, and they get to continue to feel relevant and you get to learn from them. In terms of financing, also being a conversion I think can be really advantageous because I've watched a number of co-ops spend a really long time just trying to figure out how to get from idea to first paycheck. And one of the nice things about being a conversion, particularly if you have some material, as a landscaping company, like we have trucks, we have bobcats, we have big piles of rocks, so we have some assets that we were able to actually use as collateral to say to our lender, Cooperative Fund of New England, to say, hey, we've got this pile of stuff. If we don't pay on our loans, you get to take the stuff and sell it, and so that's what collateral is. And so that was, that, and also like having a history of, okay, we kind of know how much money we're going to make each year. We've got, maintenance clients that we have been on their property working for the last 15 years. We think that's pretty stable, so we're able to even like leverage that and say, hey, we're good for it, we're a good risk for you to lend to. And for a new business, particularly a co-op, because banks really don't really understand us well yet. When you say we have 11 owners, they're like, oh, who's going to sign the paperwork? Being able to sort of have a track record to finance is really a nice thing about being a conversion. Is there any real questions for that?
Yeah.
Will you kind of tell me when
Sure.
to wrap it up? Okay. That's the good exciting part. In addition to all of this stuff, which I think you guys totally get it about what's exciting about co-ops. In terms of challenges of doing a conversion, one of the biggest ones is this thing of going from being an employee to being an owner, and so we really went through a process of, and Eileen, the owner, was really thoughtful about how does the owner back away and start to hand over the reins, and also develop the skills so that people know how to do the financial piece, how to do the management piece, how to lead, how to talk about your vision, and then to like back off. So there's like an emotional piece for the owner of kind of where do they fit into this new thing. There's the same challenge that you have around how are we going to run the company. You also have your own governance. So I think a lot of people in this room, because of being involved in Worcester Roots and other things like it, you guys have a natural ability. You've learned how to communicate with each other and how to really listen. But for us, we've got a lot of machismo going and a lot of I don't have feelings, and your opinion doesn't matter, or my opinion doesn't matter, or whatever. And so kind of getting past that to where we're really comfortable talking about what we believe in and what we're worried about and stuff like that has been and continues to be work. And the other thing is, again, for people who are told by society that our voices don't matter, learning that your voice does is a really powerful thing, but also a really hard thing. And then a lot of the challenges are really just emotional, just like this thing about being in relationship with other human beings. So, in our case, having an owner who's retiring, she had a lot of sadness and grief about letting go, and wondering, what, am I going to be relevant? Do I get to stay involved? And at the same time, not wanting to be pushy. I mean, sort of parents where they're I don't want to butt in, but I care about you and I want to see you do well. And then also, when you become a co-op, all of a sudden whatever your management structure was before is probably going to change, whether it becomes totally flat or just that everybody has a lot more input. And so a lot of the times there's this settling out thing where all of a sudden you're managing somebody who used to be your peer, or somebody who used to be working under you is now a co-owner, and you guys have equal say or whatever, and so that takes some kind of sorting out. And then, I talked about a benefit being getting to continue whatever your company culture is, but that also can be a downside. So if there are things within an organization that you don't do so well, if people gossip about each other, if there's a favoritism or anything like that, that's going to become a real stumbling block, because when you get into the stressful situation of change and of conversion, all that stuff is just going to bubble to the surface. So it's really worth just kind of taking an honest look at what is your culture? What are some things that maybe you don't do so well? And you know, are there ways that that can become ugly and what can you do to address that? Another thing that was really interesting that I didn't like know this when we were going through the conversion, and now only as I'm like looking back on it, I realized is being clear about what constitutes an agreement between people within the co-op, between the co-op and the former owner, because some people like feel like, you know, you have a handshake agreement, it's cool, we're all on the same page. Other people really want like a contract with bullet points and like everything very specific. And either of those is fine, but if one person thinks it's a handshake and the other person thinks that they need an itemized contract, things are gonna get very ugly. And so, like as much as, like it's not bad to have expectations, it's not bad to have feelings, but as much as you can sort of go in and be honest about those, it's really helpful because otherwise people end up feeling like, oh, I didn't get a good deal or whatever.
If you could wrap up in 2 recent
Perfect.
questions.
Yep. So in terms of like, what were the first steps? I mean, there are a couple of people here who are interested in either forming a co-op or doing a conversion. I heard somebody say, maybe at the National Working Co-op Conference, there's this term people's feasibility study. So when a conventional business is going to go and like ask a bank for money, they have to go and sort of give them a business plan, and they have to say, this is who our potential customers are, this is who our workforce is going to be, all this stuff. And that could be like a very expensive thing to put together. But anybody can do that in terms of thinking about, okay, what do we bring to the table? How's this going to work? Do we have a team of people who are going to be good worker owners? Do we have customers who are going to be psyched to be involved in this? Who are our resources? Like, how are we going to get financing? Who can give us advice? The co-op world is very generous, and so, you know, if you can sort of start sending out feelers, there will be people there to step up to help you. And then also starting, particularly for conversion, to think about how do you arrive at fair value? And it sucks to have to like be all about money, but it is the thing that ultimately, at the end of the day, people are left feeling like this was fair or it wasn't. And so coming to whatever agreement it is about how does the owner get compensated for the years of their life and the risk and whatever that they put into this, so that they end up feeling good about and like wanting to have a continued relationship.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I have a question about the, you know, that learning curve to, you know, the fear of becoming an owner or the having to rethink your role, either for conversion or for experiment. How do you find, you know, when you have someone who comes on board and they are, you know, the candidacy lasts 3 years before they're eligible to become an owner, do you find that they really do have to become accustomed to that idea, or there's any types of trainings or anything else that happens during that time to get people accustomed to?
So we're really young, so we're still sort of figuring out what that's going to look like. But I mean, I know that like Equal Exchange and co-ops that have been around for a long time do have a pretty clear, you know, curriculum for what types of things they want people to be exposed to. And I imagine that we'll do something similar. But for us, it really has taken, and we're just now getting to the point where we all sort of feel like, yeah, I'm allowed to have an opinion about this. And it, you know, it leads to these funny situations where, like, my office manager will come to me and be like, I don't know if I should say this, so I'm putting on my co-owner hat rather than my office manager hat, but I noticed this thing that's happening that I'm worried could create a big problem. And she, you know, and I just try to be like, that's perfect, that's awesome, that's exactly what each of us has to do because we're all in this together, and it's not about like, this is your job description and you're not allowed to have an opinion about anything else.
Right.
But it's a process.
I'm sorry to continue on this, but I was just wondering if, do you find that there are particular skills that you try to develop in people so that they get to share in the leadership of the company? So I'm thinking particularly, are you, in a sense, preparing people not just to become a co-owner, but to take on a much broader set of ideas and ways of behaving.
Yeah, I mean, Eileen was really thoughtful about probably for the last 7 years, and she didn't kind of let us in until more recently about why she was doing it. But she was really intentional about, she created a management team, whereas before she'd always done everything by herself, and would sort of lead us through like doing strategic planning or creating a budget, or I mean all that kind of technical stuff that often the owner's the only person who does it, particularly with a small business. And then also handing over responsibility for the management and the relationships and saying, okay, here's how you mentor somebody. So you're gonna set time on your calendar with this guy twice a month where you're gonna really sit down and talk to him about his development. And so that we start developing those relationships among ourselves.
Sabby, and then I have a question. Go ahead.
I have like a couple of questions, but my first thing is like, once you go to the banks or wherever you get your money, sources of income, since like, you know, like this year we made like, you know, a couple of years now, like this is the amount of money you have been making, and like if they want to give you like fund or loans or whatever, but like to me, like what if you have like a co-op, right, and it's like you have your ups and downs about like how things are gonna come in and how things are gonna go out. Like some years will be like really, really good, and then some years will be like so terrible. Like, how do you go about that?
That's a really big question. So some of it is understanding, are there cycles to it? So like for a landscaping company, every year our cash flow goes like this.
Right.
Like the amount of money that we actually have in the bank. And that's not anybody's fault. It's just that we don't work in the winter because it's Massachusetts. And then in the spring, we have like a month where we're buying materials, we're paying payroll, but none of our customers have paid us yet.
Right.
And then this time of year, we're like, oh, good, we finally have money and we can like pay some stuff off. But when we were trying to talk to funders, they were like, why do you guys still need a line of credit? Or like, why can't you stand on your own 2 feet? And we had to explain to them. So some of it's like having the confidence of saying, well, this might look a little weird, but this is why it happened. And my guess is from year to year that you might have that too, where you say, well, okay, that year we didn't do that well, but it's because, you know, we were trying a new thing and it was risky and we learned some lessons, and these are the things that we changed the next year, and look how well we did. So some of it is like looking back and understanding and being able to just explain that to a funder.
Question about the race and class dynamics.
Yeah.
And I imagine that a lot of conversions do face interesting race and class dynamics because a lot of white folks with class privilege own businesses, and then a lot of workers are often folks with less privilege, class privilege, and often a lot of folks of color. So I'm wondering if it's a big question, so maybe a short version or a couple tips that you've used to deal with those dynamics, and how it can be done in less of an assistentialist way, like the owner giving this, as a favor to the workers, but actually as a process of really building wealth and ownership, and maybe language, how that plays in as well.
So I mean, I think the first thing would be like, the longer that you can spend working toward it, probably the more that you can actually accomplish a culture change if you have some dynamics that you want to shift. Because for us, I would say even still, there is this perspective on both sides that like Eileen gave a gift to the employees, even though objectively speaking, you could also say we gave her a gift because we were a very willing buyer and she didn't have to spend a lot of money or a lot of legal fees to, go through like a conventional sale. But that's totally something that's operating in both directions. Is you have people who'll be like, I never could have done this without you, and that's true, and I don't want to take away from that, but at the same time, it's not a good dynamic, and it's not one that Actually, a lot of people are open to exploring. So we're actually bringing folks from Aorta Cooperative to come and do some trainings with us and do some workshops, because there is a lot of that stuff still operating where white folks aren't conscious of skin privilege, or folks who had financial support from their parents, or who even didn't like walk into this country when they were fleeing by themselves, don't realize that gives you a leg up in society, and we're not real reflective about that, and we have to be. I'm sorry, I wish I had sage advice, but it's just messy.
Yeah, and if people don't know Aorta, they do great facilitation around anti-depression. They have lots of good resources on their website, aorta.org. Any other?
Can I just say one thing about the language thing? Because that is something I feel like we have a better handle on. So we only have one member who doesn't speak Spanish. And we had this really interesting meeting early on where, for the last 25 years, Eileen, who also doesn't speak Spanish, would talk, and Giovanni or I would translate. And to be management, you kind of had to be very bilingual. And so everything went English into Spanish. And then we had this co-op meeting where we were having a really heated discussion, and all of a sudden, we're all speaking Spanish, and the person who doesn't speak Spanish got this just pained look on her face. And you talk about privilege, she was very, very angry at me afterwards for not kind of having noticed, because I'm so used to making sure we're translating everything to Spanish. I didn't really notice, and she had every right to be angry because she should have access just like everybody else. But I had to sort of say, look, this is how a lot of your coworkers spend all of their time, is not having stuff in their language. And so, at this point, what we do is, so there's the language thing, and there's also the people's access to email and stuff like that. So, usually I'll send out the agenda in English via email and for a board meeting, and then I'll do a voice recording in Spanish with just sort of some notes of what we're going to be talking about, and send that out to everybody's phones. And so there's the language thing, and there's also the technology thing of what's gonna make communication accessible to everybody where they're at.
Great. Well, we have to keep moving. But thank you for all that experience, and we'll have some more time for discussion afterwards. So let's hear maybe 5 minutes or so, and leave some time for discussion about neuron robotics and what you're all thinking.
So, Neurobotics was founded in 2008 as by a friend of mine and myself, coming out of WGI. We were trying to make robot controllers for the education market. Figured we could make built-in robots of sort of the modern, really powerful types, as easy and cheap as writing software. So originally what we did is pre-Kickstarter, so it was 2008. Unfortunately, we missed that boat. Would have been great for that.
You can go to your
made some sales to WPI, universities, and it moved slowly because universities moved at their pace, and we had some problems with our supply chain, and the 2010 tsunami ruined us. Not nearly as much as it's screwed them, but it made us start thinking about globalized supply chains and sort of how does the value creation process work. One of our members, one of our partners, ended up leaving when it came to industry, and Alex and I stuck out building robot controllers, which we started applying for a set of industrial contracts where we would go to companies and deploy what was originally this kid's toy, actually turned out to be far superior than current generation industrial controllers. And once we realized that, we said, oh, wait a second, there's more to this. We've now had our control framework surgically verified. The stack that I built, top to bottom, has now been performing surgeries on 3 patients so far, and none of them died. Very happy about that. And basically what we started thinking is, all right, automation is doing some really weird things, not just for allowing people to do things at faster and cheaper at lower marginal cost, but it's also sort of having this very problematic and disruptive effect in the global you know, outsourcing was sort of our first introduction to this idea of your job is going away in this country. So we all tend to think of it in terms of outsourcing and you know, this class and race animosity that gets built up around it. And the reality is the only reason outsourcing works is because of technology, communications. And that technology progressed forward to the point where the technology itself is doing the production. And so I got very concerned with the concept of value creation. How does that actually operate in the economy? Where is value created? Who's making the decision on what is created? And who's actually getting that value after it's created? And you know, started reading, came across Richard Wolff's introduction to Marxian economics, which is utterly fantastic. If anyone is in any way interested in how economics kind of works at the nitty-gritty level, that is from production up, which most of economics does not actually address. The big problem that we saw with that is all the value that's being created, the costs of production, when you really just sort of drill down to what is a cost in production, it's labor. It's paying someone to do something. And the closer you get to zero marginal cost, from your business perspective, looks great. Your costs go down, your ability to produce goes up, your throughput goes up, everything from an individual business perspective looks fantastic until everyone does it. And then if everyone's lowering their marginal costs, what happens to the aggregate is the amount of money being spent back into the economy as wages to then turn back into demand is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And it's this process that is happening that we are not paying attention to. We, you know, political class is not paying attention to it. But we, the people building the robots, are starting to notice. And so our long-term goal is not just to form a worker cooperative to produce value and make sure the value stays with the people that produced it. Because ultimately, the worker producing the necessary value, or necessary labor, the labor that is required to actually create a product that is then sold at the market, that is the labor. Those are the people who own it. Anyone else taking that value is expropriating that value, is taking the value away from the people who created it for themselves. It was sort of funny you said, who is giving what to who? Yeah, that's a real, actually, that's a much deeper philosophical question. Because, you know, if you really drill down to it, you guys were giving a percentage of your labor for free to the owner, whose only, you know, claim to it is a legal claim. You know, it's us as people interacting with each other, claiming something that isn't actually there. That owner, any owner, does not actually produce anything. That's sort of the definition of owning versus working. So what we're trying to provide is a framework for people to bootstrap themselves through this process. We're building automation technologies, and the automation technologies are working towards abundance. And it's only screwing us because of the way we manage our economic system. So if we say, no, everything should be automated, we should be working actively to incentivize anything that someone doesn't want to do, and that how you live and, you know, where the necessary products for your life come from should be completely separate and different from what it is you do. Everyone should be guaranteed access to the fruits of production. Everyone, you know, period. Especially as it becomes more and more automated. And especially from our perspective, making sure that automation can produce all of the equipment necessary to reproduce that automation. Because if you can't reproduce, you can't grow, you would still have the external dependencies. So, you know, in the same way permaculture is this applied to farming, think of this like permafacture, where the production itself is self-contain a goal, and the entirety, top to bottom set of the production is distributable, and that the people who are using the production themselves should be entirely in control of their own production. And then what you do is not a question that other people have to interact with. You go do art, you go do life, you go spend time with your family, you travel, you go to the stars. There's an infinity of infinities of things to do. And why are we so caught up in this drive to get money? It's because the money is necessary to survive. I think that is entirely not going to be the case moving forward. So we're forming our worker cooperative under the known end goal of eliminating our worker cooperative. But the ultimate goal is that nobody works for money, that money becomes not a thing. Not because we have all gathered together and seized the means of production in the traditional way. I mean, that's just ridiculous because those require people to work in. So it's you could never have that as an end goal, but you could have fully distributed automation as an end goal. That is what we are working towards.
Great. Any questions for Neuron? There's other folks from Neuron.
Okay,
Technocopia.
my question is like with the, I can't say you guys' name.
Technocopia?
Yeah, that thing. My question is, like since you guys started with like all these technology and stuff, like has it gotten to a point where it's like you had like made a mistake but into like something where like you can't turn your back into it?
Can you clarify that?
Like it's like, okay, so you guys are like starting from like doing all these stuff, doing the robotic stuff, and it's like once like because it's technology and it's like co-op, like once you like break a piece, like it's gonna be hard for you to like bring it back. Like, how does it?
Well, that's actually the really cool part about what we're doing is breaking things is fine because we have what's called parallel production. Normally in the way you would produce things in industry is you have this one very long chain from some primary resource capture all the way to final produced good, and that there's a step-by-step process, months, maybe years in the making between the capture of a primary resource and the final produced part. What we're proposing is collapsing that supply chain into an entirely self-contained factory, and then saying, okay, if you want more throughput, you don't make that faster, you make multiples. And by having multiple copies of your pipeline, when something does fail, it's called dynamic perturbance rejection, which is to say things go bad, but that's fine because you can detect it, you can compensate it within the buffer of the system itself. Normally, the way this process works is what you're talking about would be like warehousing. Someone just makes a bunch of extra parts and has them in a warehouse somewhere. What we say, don't do that, that's wasteful. Simply have additional capacity to produce. So that when something breaks, the 95% of your production that is still perfectly functional from top to bottom, and that key being from top to bottom, produces the replacement part and you're off to the races again.
So I would encourage people to go check out Technocopia and see the space. It's really impressive what they have set up on Prescott Street. Technocopia.org has all the info. You should talk to Kevin and folks after this. And yeah, you can become part of it and you can become a producer and make stuff. But if we can focus the rest of this little time we have together on the conversion process of like how we can learn from each other and work together in building co-ops, that would be great. So if there are any other burning questions on Neuron Robotics, or let's take those and
So one quick thing I forgot to mention though, one of the ways we're actually organizing the day-to-day tasks and the things that need to get done is it's from the software world. It's called issue tracking. There's a really great free software website. Actually, it's not even really software called GitHub. We use it to both track our engineering and also our corporate activities, tasks, assignments, completion dates. All of this stuff is really great. There's another version of it that's specifically designed just for cooperative management called Lumia. Lumia is fantastic. It has more business plan type stuff, more of the financials are included in the process. And those two are really their ways of flattening out the hierarchy structure. So that not to say that you don't want someone being responsible for it, but there's less tasks that someone has to make all the decisions for. Make come up with ideas that need to be done, assign them to themselves, assign them to other people, and it's sort of a bossless way of creating tasks and making sure that they are completed.
All right. Welcome, Youth Grow. We are wrapping up a workshop in about half an hour. If you can do stuff quietly, feel free to use the kitchen and stuff. If not, maybe you could use the front room for a while, if that's possible.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So, in the interest of time, we're going to keep moving, if that's all right. And let's hear. So, next we're going to hear from Pure Juice and Chris Gonzalez from Pure Juice. And now we've been talking mostly about worker cooperatives. But with the next conversation, we're going to think about other kinds of co-ops and maybe about consumer cooperatives, where the people who buy from the store can be part owners, or a mix of those two. So, Luce, if you want to share a little bit about what your business is and where you're at and what you're thinking about in terms of co-ops.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks for organizing this, and thank you, everyone. Pure Juice, the idea of Pure Juice, I'll just tell you a little briefly about how it started. So I've been in Worcester for 10 years, and I used to drive up and down Park Ave and Chandler Street trying to find something like pure juice, like a juice that had no concentrates, that was freshly made. I grew up in Colombia, where my grandmother used to make carrot juice, and I just missed that a lot, and I would always be complaining, there's no juice bar in Worcester, there's no place to get juice that's natural and fresh. So I got tired of that conversation, and I said, I'll just open up a juice bar. And last year, we found a spot right in our neighborhood, and we opened it. To open it, I used up all my savings, and at some point I ran out of money because I had no idea how much it took to create a business. And so I found a partner who was willing to go in it with me and complete it. I'm really grateful to him for doing that. And then we opened up the store in October, and because we had no experience in the retail business, we also had a lot of overcosts and employees in that sense, and so we ran out of our savings pretty soon, and then we were just working on the day-to-day basis. And pretty soon the partner that I found, he had never had juice before, so this was the first time he actually got involved in a retail business and had the juice. So it wasn't something he was passionate about. So we borrowed some money. We got some money in the savings to keep it going, because we started in October, and we found that juices, or a new juice business in Worcester, runs a lot with the sun and the weather. And so the winter months were like, at a loss. And finally came April, we were like, just even it. And so at that point, my partner wants to no longer be a part of it. He wants to just close the business and just end it. And this is something that I'm passionate about, and that I think that one of the things that people, when they come into the store, and the sign of relief, I don't know if you've been there or any of you have been, when you come in, you smell the freshness of the fruits, and it's like a really loving place. It's made with a lot of love, and so you feel that love when you're there. And the juices are delicious, and they're healthy. And at some point I was also trying to find a partner to continue the business. And I met with a lot of potential partners, but they had different visions. One of them, lately he said he wanted to do incorporate sodas, you know, as a way. So that's like totally out of the vision of the business or the mission of it, is to have a healthy alternative for people. That this is not going to be like, that's going to be like the it thing that saves people. It's just like an option among many other options. So people have access to healthy drinks, healthy food. We're now having salads. And there's a bigger vision. There are other things that we want to incorporate because I don't want to close it down. And so I'm trying to figure out a way to keep it going and kind of like make people that already are consuming the product or that already work there be part of it in a way so that it can continue, it can thrive. And I believe in the juices. I believe that it's a great idea and people love it because they keep coming back. So, you know, I was interested when Matt invited me to hear about the co-op conversion, and I think that's the way that I would want to go because I don't want it to end. Consumers would be very upset because they love it, and the workers too. There's young people that are working there and they love it. Now I have some interns, you know, who knows, maybe they could become part of it too. I really have no idea because I've never done a co-op business. So I'm curious to hear more about how to do it, where to do it, and so the juice bar can continue to be an opportunity, another option for people in the city to have healthy food.
Any questions for Bruce?
Sorry, are you thinking about being like a hybrid between like the people who work there being owners, but also having like co-op members who are customers?
Yeah, I'm open to any ideas. I'm really open to just having it stay open, and rather than getting another partner involved, you know, it is a team effort. There's many details to a business, a retail business. Like I run around a lot of my day going to get lids, going to get cups, going to get jars. You know, we're missing this, we're missing that. I now have the employees are managers because my other partner does some of the managing work, but because he doesn't want to do so much, I kind of like given the employees, and they've taken on doing some of the management, doing inventory, ordering produce, and you know, finding farmers where we could get produce from. So I'm really open to building it with the consumers and, you know, potentially workers. Not sure how it works.
So the first step we have talked about is doing a little poll survey with some of the regular customers and with the workers to see how much interest there is in the co-op idea. We've gotten some resources from Cooperative Development Institute, which is a great technical assistance group in the region. But you know, Luce was running 2 businesses and a lot of, you know, other busy people. We're looking for support in making that survey happen. So if anyone has resources or interest, actually I'm just going to throw that out right now. Is anyone interested in helping Pure Juice with making a survey and moving that process forward? Even if you haven't done one before, you could learn what other co-ops have done or other businesses. Yeah, you're interested? Great, so maybe you can connect me.
As well.
Great, excellent. Yeah, so any other questions for Pure Juice?
Do you have, like, from the farmers that you work with or other suppliers or whatever, do you feel like you have business relationships with people who could help you, like, you know, maybe the farmers are running a farmer's market or something like that, that they might have other insights into, you know, whether it's supply chain stuff or financing stuff or marketing, or like, do you have some of those partnerships that you can call on within that existing?
I think
network?
so. Yeah, we do farmers markets now. We're going to bring our juices to farmers markets. So we have a lot of relationships in the community that we just haven't tapped in. You know, it requires time. You know, it's you need, you know, a little bit of capital, but you also need a lot of time. When, especially with a new business, and this is just, you know, it's not even a year-old business, so it required a team effort.
yeah, I was just wondering, like you talked about sort of trying to get some of the employees more involved as managers, and like, are there other ways that you can kind of grab a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of a plan or whatever to support you? Because right now you're the one, it sounds like, who's keeping this whole thing afloat.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I could tap into the resources. It's just like I'm still all over the place. Like I have 2 businesses, and so this is like the business that I'm really passionate about, and I want to invest more time in it. But the other business actually pays for my bills, so I can't, like, how to juggle both businesses so that they can stay afloat and people can have their drinks. And I love it. I love the idea of owning a business, giving people employment, and running with an idea that actually happens, and just don't want to let it die. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. If we have to close it down, that's fine. But what a great opportunity to have the people have a say in it. Do they want it closed down, or do people want to be consumers and they want to be participants in some way so that it doesn't close down? Yeah.
Just sort of more specific on that theme is going to producers and asking for sort of producer lines of credit. We do this when we're manufacturing electronics, which is probably not even the
We
same
do.
thing,
We
but
do have a line of credit with one
With
of the
the producers.
with one of the producers, which has allowed us to continue running. But because my relationship with my partner is, it's at a point where he just doesn't want to have to do with it anymore. He called one of the producers and like kind of said, "Don't charge us anymore." So we're like day to day. We're now on a day to day situation. So.
Because the idea was going back to the producers and offering them a percentage stake of the produce that is produced. Just say, here is whatever you deliver, you're going to get this marginal return on whatever they give you. It may fluctuate, but if they're depends on what the producer's situation is, you might be able to make a deal where you don't have to do the total capital outlay. You just have to, on the back end, kick it upstream. So they deliver fruit and they get the profit share after it's been put out the door, as opposed to saying, here is it on credit and you're accumulating credit, you're sort of accumulating loss. And instead say you sort of carry the loss forward, and at the beginning you're going to get a percentage. You producer are going to get this percentage of annualized profit.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept that I talked with Matt about, incorporating that as part of the co-op. Having farmers be also like shareholders, and he said that would be a little bit more complex. So you would have to figure out more about it. So
But it's a whole other potential group of owners in the business.
Right.
It could be a hybrid of 3 different kinds, or 2 of those 3, or People have any other questions or suggestions on that?
Is there a way we can get the word out for Pure Juice? Because every time I've walked by, I didn't know it was a juice bar. Because I always just see the barber shop. I never noticed.
We got like big signs.
I just noticed the big Pure Juice sign.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was like behind back there.
Yeah. Have you been?
No, not yet.
I have some
Gonna have
cards,
to go now.
flyers.
I live right across the street. I'm definitely going now.
And then
Yeah,
there's
right?
the question, if we all, as people who drink juice there, or will start drinking juice there, would we be interested in paying, or would we be able to pay a membership fee, membership dues, and then be part owners of the business? Is there interest in that? When we're part of it, we can help get the word out more too, right?
You might want to look at for sort of short-term big bulk, doing like a crowdfunding campaign of some sort. Offer to ship people juice up. Some guy was making potato salad, made thousands of dollars. Like,
I
I
think
mean,
it was 16,000.
yeah, ridiculous amounts of money
Take
for
some.
no effort. And it's just pre-sales, and that's what's nice. You lose a little bit of percent off the top to the provider, but you are essentially selling stuff as opposed to taking out a loan where you still have to figure out where the customers come from. The customers come right to you, and they promote the loan.
We have a question back here too.
Yeah, that's great.
Similar to what has come up before in terms of exploring some other opportunities for expanding the business. And on the marketing side of things, do you know if there's any opportunities, or there may be opportunities to, instead of people trying to find you, you bringing the juice to them and maybe producing more of it, so going in the bulk direction a little bit too. I mean, I could think of, there might be some interest in having juice delivered in bulk for a large group of people in particular areas, and it could be a way to just produce a lot to turn over supplier stock very quickly, get the juice out the door, and I'm not sure what that would look like, but I'm just wondering if you have considered any of those.
Yes, I have considered it, but like I said, you need time to go talk to the people. So anyway, the bottom line, the business can expand in many ways, and that's one of the ways. One of the ideas I had when I just came to this crossroad of what to do next with the little bit of funding that we have is, whether get the wholesale license, which will allow us to go wholesale and bring it to X place and just leave it there and have people pay for it as they buy it, or getting contracts, which would be the ideal. Originally, one of the goals that I had when I started the business too was to have it be accessible to kids in the schools and have them be able to drink healthy juice in the morning rather than those concentrate juices. But I've been working with the school system, with some of the people in the school that is right near the juice bar, and it's been very challenging. And everyone says it's very hard to get in the school system, which I'm not opposed to continuing that. I'm very persistent, so that doesn't tire me out. And I did go in as soon as the school ended. I went and talked with the principal there, and we have a meeting next week. But it's just like she thought maybe it would be good for the after-school program, which is a way to get some access. Because the idea is for the kids to develop their taste buds and want and crave this healthy food, so that they don't go for the soda. That was one of the goals. But we have done events where people order the juice and we bring it in bulk. And the instructors have said that people at the events are very participative, because they're just drinking the juice. You don't have to take breaks to eat. You're just sipping your juice throughout the whole workshop, whatever it is, all day long. Some people do cleanses, and we do cleanses as one of our products that we sell, and it's been very successful, the cleanses, because you feel it like when you do one day cleanse, you have a ton of energy at the end of the day, and so it's something that we need to develop more, the cleanses and the events.
So we're running low on time, but I wanted to just encourage us to think about how we can support, all these initiatives going forward, because it really will take this ecosystem of co-ops to make it happen, right? So how can we support, if we know folks in Boston area that might need a landscaping company to think of a yard and a half, how can we bring people who are makers, artists, producers down to Technocopia so they can see the great setup they have there. People who are interested in being involved in co-opifying pure juice, to talk to Luce and get involved in support with the survey is a great way as well. But if people have other concrete ideas like that, we do have an alliance that Mr. Roots is a part of called SAGE, Solidarity and Green Economy Alliance, where we, part of the purpose of that alliance is to support each other in these initiatives. And we have an assembly coming up October 4th to pick the next campaign. It's part of our We Own It campaign. to mobilize for that. But if people have other ideas of ways we can support each other, stay in touch, we're passing around a sign-up sheet, and with your permission, we'll share it with the folks who have come here with concrete ideas. They can reach out for support. While we're thinking about that, are there other resources that have come up or people have thought about that we want to share? I heard Aorta, if someone could jot up aorta.org, I think. And then the GitHub and Lumina. Lumia.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I wrote up some URLs there. usworker.coop/resources has a lot of different things, and two of their main subjects are about convergence. There's some very inspiring stuff going on around the country, where a Republic Windows and Doors company was going under in Chicago, and the workers converted that into a worker cooperative now called New Era Windows. They're actually looking for places to start distribution sites for that if people are interested. There are several in Western Mass that have converted, a pickles company called Real Pickles, Valley Green Feast, and others have done conversions, and there's great examples around, and some info is up there. And then specifically there's a Prezi about conversions at tiny.cc/conv-Prezi, and that has some more about these reasons for going co-op and about some of the challenges and like a timeline for you to look at. Are there other resources people want to share?
rdwolf.com and its courses. It's half of them are presented by Richard Wolf. The other half are guest lectures, Gara, giving lectures and presentations on how economics and production meet.
Any others? We also have some information here from North Country Cooperative and the Ohio Employee Ownership Center about conversion. So feel free to take one of these as you get the brochures. And then Worcester Roots is organizing a co-op academy this fall. This is the flyer for it, and it's geared towards groups who have a business plan idea or are operating a business and looking to convert, or are already starting a cooperative. So Diggers Landscaping Co-op is in the room. Future Focus Media Co-op took the 101 course last year, and now we're going to be building more and more skills. So please spread the word about that if anyone's interested in learning about cooperatives and taking an intensive course. Any other announcements or resources or burning things people want to say? So we'll continue these conversations, and thanks a lot for coming, folks who came from afar and who joined us via internet. Sorry, the audio was hard to hear, but let's stay in touch. We'll send out some notes and video on this if you want to share it with other people too.
Idea. So you mentioned that you have
And if people who offer to do
do you have like hot ciders and that sort of stuff? So it's really awesome